Well, Donald Trump has made it through another day of his life without being indicted. It could be the last indictment-free day of Donald Trump's life. And Trump supporters have made it through another day of their lives without protesting for Donald Trump as he requested and demanding that Donald Trump not be indicted. Donald Trump has made it through 76 years and 9 months of his life without ever being charged with a crime. Most 76-year-olds, including most 76-year-olds who are career criminals, are past the point of worrying about being charged with crimes because they just don't feel like taking chances anymore at age 76. But Donald Trump has never learned to stop taking chances, especially legal chances. And that's why we are tracking two secretive legal processes tonight that could mean Donald Trump will be criminal defendant Trump in two different cases by the time he turns 77 on June 14th. The Manhattan grand jury investigating Donald Trump's hush money payoff to actress Stephanie Clifford, also known as Stormy Daniels, is scheduled to meet again tomorrow. And at this point, any time that grand jury meets could be the time that they vote on an indictment of Donald Trump. And the next day in Washington, on Friday, another grand jury will be meeting to hear testimony from one of Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyers, which will very likely be testimony against Donald Trump. One of the reasons Donald Trump is in increasing legal peril is that he repeatedly chooses lawyers who do not know how to say no to Donald Trump. Remember that Michael Cohen began his involvement in the Stormy Daniels story as Donald Trump's lawyer. And as Donald Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen entered a criminal conspiracy with Donald Trump to pay off Stormy Daniels. And that is why Michael Cohen was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. Michael Cohen is now a witness against Donald Trump in the Manhattan grand jury. Donald Trump famously said in the middle of his presidency, when he felt besieged by the Mueller investigation, "Get me a Roy Cohn." Roy Cohn is still Donald Trump's idea of the kind of lawyer he wants. Roy Cohn became famous in the 1950s as a completely unethical staffer working for a completely unethical Republican senator named Joe McCarthy. From that era forward, the term McCarthyism, named after Joe McCarthy, meant a reckless lying outburst by someone making personal accusations with no evidence. McCarthyism became Donald Trump's own personal ideal throughout his life. It was ugly, but to many did not seem harmful to the country when, before he became a politician, Donald Trump was hurling his McCarthy-style invective at entertainers like Rosie O'Donnell. But then Donald Trump brought his Joe McCarthy, Roy Cohn operating style into politics and into the White House. And here's the most important thing about Donald Trump's continuing admiration of Roy Cohn, who was a mentor of Donald Trump's. By the time Roy Cohn died in 1986, he was a disgraced, disbarred lawyer who had been charged with felonies. Before he died, Roy Cohn once said, "Donald Trump is my best friend." Someone should have warned Michael Cohen that when Donald Trump says he wants a lawyer like Roy Cohn, and you become Donald Trump's lawyer, there's a chance you might end up like Roy Cohn, disbarred and disgraced, as Michael Cohen is now. Evan Corcoran could be next to follow former Trump lawyers Roy Cohn and Michael Cohen into disbarment and disgrace, depending on how he testifies under oath to Special Prosecutor Jack Smith's grand jury in Washington on Friday. Today, Jack Smith won the right to pierce the attorney-client privilege in questioning Trump criminal defense attorney Evan Corcoran about the government documents and classified documents found with an FBI search warrant at Donald Trump's home in Florida, including the classified documents that the FBI found in Donald Trump's desk. Few lawyers in history have more experience with the federal appeals process than our first guest tonight, Neal Katyal, who shared my awe last night at the news, the breaking news at the time, that a three-judge panel of the Circuit Court of Appeals in Washington was speeding an appeal on the question of Evan Corcoran's testimony through the appeals process with deadlines issued to the lawyers in the case, not measured in weeks or days, but in hours. Last Friday, in a sealed proceeding, the chief judge of the federal district court in Washington, supervising Jack Smith's grand jury, issued an order for Evan Corcoran to testify to that grand jury. Trump lawyers appealed that order, and on Tuesday, the appeals court gave the Trump lawyers a deadline of midnight for filing their brief, and Jack Smith was given a deadline of 6 a.m. this morning for filing his response. This afternoon, the appeals court ruled that Evan Corcoran must testify to the grand jury because Judge Howell, who had issued the order, had found that Evan Corcoran's testimony is subject to the crime fraud exception to the attorney-client privilege. Now, let's just stop right here and consider what happened in the judicial system between the close of business on Friday in the federal district court in Washington and the close of business today, Wednesday, in the federal district court in Washington. We saw an appeal of a district court judge's order processed in less than 3 days. Each party had to file their briefs 2 days after the district judge ruled in the case. And the appeals court ruled on those filings on the same day that they were filed. We have seen that kind of process take the better part of a year in other federal cases, sometimes longer than that. The last 3 days have been the worst days of Donald Trump's life as a delay-producing litigant. Delay, delay, delay has always been Donald Trump's legal strategy, but it is not working this week in the face of Special Prosecutor Jack Smith's aggressive demand for Donald Trump's criminal defense attorney to testify to Jack Smith's grand jury. ABC News is reporting that Judge Howell's order allows Jack Smith to question Donald Trump's defense lawyer on 6 topics. The topics indicate that Smith has zeroed in on Trump's actions surrounding his response to a May 11th Department of Justice subpoena that sought all remaining classified documents in his possession, which investigators have described as key to Trump's alleged scheme to obstruct the investigations, sources said. ABC News reported exclusively Tuesday that Smith believes Trump intentionally and deliberately misled his own attorneys about Trump's retention of classified materials after leaving office. Smith's investigators specifically want to ask Corcoran whether Trump was aware of the statements in the certification which claimed a diligent search of Mar-a-Lago had been conducted, and if Trump approved of it being provided to the government. Sources familiar with the filing said Corcoran was ordered to detail the steps he took to determine where documents responsive to the Department of Justice's May subpoena may have been located, sources said. He also was ordered to provide testimony on why he believed all documents with classification markings were held in Mar-a-Lago's storage room, as he had allegedly confirmed to a top Department of Justice official when investigators visited the estate in June of last year. Evan Corcoran's under oath answers to those questions could incriminate Donald Trump, or Evan Corcoran's testimony could incriminate Evan Corcoran himself. Evan Corcoran's testimony could be the most important testimony that Special Prosecutor Jack Smith will obtain in his grand jury investigation of Donald Trump's possession of government documents and classified documents, which Donald Trump has claimed publicly and falsely belonged to him.